Okay, go ahead.
All right, this is a home interview at Rotterdam Junction. It is the 14th of July, 2005, approximately 10 a.m. Interviewers are Wayne Clark and Mike Russert. Could you give me your full name, your date of birth, and place of birth, please?
George H. Green, Ellenville, New York, April 28, 1928.
Okay. What was your educational background prior to entering the
About
Merchant
a year
Marine?
and a half of high school, because being a farm boy, we got a month off in the fall and a month in the spring to do farm work for the war effort. So the 2 years I was in high school, I had about 5 months off. I took like 5 weeks instead of 4 a couple of times.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember where you were and how you heard about Pearl Harbor?
I was going across the road to get a bucket of water because our well, something went bad, and my father heard on the radio, I think it was 1 o'clock or something, or 1 p.m. or something, sometime in the afternoon. I don't remember what hour this or that, but that's how I remember hearing about it.
Do you remember what kind of reaction you had when you heard about this?
Well, everybody was up in arms, from the farm guy to the military guy, you know, something that never happened before. And during the 1930s, we weren't in a world war with anybody. I always figured that's all we ever did. Soldiers went from camp to camp training, the sailors went from port to port training. And when this happened, I'm saying, Jesus Christ, they weren't doing too good with their training, or somebody should have known something was coming. Well, they claimed they did know too, so I don't know. Now,
you decided to join the Merchant Marines when you were age 16, correct?
I tried to get in the Army, Navy. They threw me out, laughed at me. I went to Newburgh, I went to Kingston, hitchhiked, took off from school, got kicked out of school for taking off. My mother and father had to take me back. And grammar school, I went for 8 years, never missed a day. I broke my arm here, fingers. I was right in school the next day. In fact, I got all my daughter had all my cards, grammar school cards. I'll show them to you if you look at them. My mother saved everything.
Now, why did you decide to join the Merchant Marines?
Well, it's the only place I could go. Nobody else would have me.
Now, did your parents have to sign for you because you were 16?
Well, like I said, being a dumb farm boy, they said I needed a guardian's signature. I saw more of my school teacher than I saw my mother. I figured she was my guardian for 8 hours a day. So she wrote me that letter. Now, the sheriff of Ulster County, he was a Boy Scout leader. We used to go camping with him up in Spruce Mountain or whatever, jamborees and all that. I saw more of him than I saw my father. He was out in the barn down in the fields 20 hours a day, 7 days a week. So he wrote me the other letter. Well, you read them.
Okay, when did you join the Merchant Marines?
September 20th, 1944.
All right. Did you have any kind of training at all? Where did you go?
Went to Sheepshead Bay.
What training? Did you have much training?
Well, they taught me how to fire guns. They threw me in an underground pit there with gas masks on. They pumped gas in. We took our gas masks off. Ran the obstacle course. Did some boxing. This guy, he had to be 6'2", 6'4", about 220. Looked just like Victor Mature, all muscle. Bang! He'd give me a shot, and where we were boxing, it was more or less gravel and blacktop. Right, I'd go down on my knees, I'd get up. I told the guy, I said, Jesus, take it easy, will you? I said, I'm only a kid. I'm only 130 pounds. So he was just tapping me easy, you know. He said, oh, I'm sorry. The goddamn drill instructor saw it, and he comes over and he says, what are you doing, taking it easy on that kid? So he slaps the guy in the back. He says, hit that son of a bitch. Guy hit me, I went down, I came up, my elbow's all blood. Hit him! Hits me again, I go down, my stomach's blood, my knees are blood. I got up the third time. He says to the guy, that's all, no more. He said, this guy's tougher than you. He says, I don't want you on the obstacle course anymore. He says, here's a rifle. You stand guard in one of the compartments.
Now, the ones that trained you, were you trained by naval personnel?
I don't know who they were, but...
Or merchant marine personnel?
Well, all I know is there was Army generals there. There was all kinds of people there. Roy Rogers was there with his horse, Trigger. There's 30,000 guys there, so I don't know who the hell. I imagine there's Coast Guard, Army, Navy, everything. War Shipping Administration, whatever they had to do with the war effort. The government had to know where the hell the ships were going. They had to know where the hell the cargo, what cargo was on the ships. I mean, they're not going to send a load of bananas to Italy. They had to know the goddamn crew on the ship. They issued the goddamn passports and the ID. So, I mean, it's their responsibility to, well, obey the goddamn Constitution, labor laws, and...
How much training did you have?
5 weeks, I showed it to you there.
Right. Okay, after your 5 weeks of training, were you assigned to a ship, or
Yep.
Could you tell us about that?
Well, they sent me down to Baltimore. They paid for it, Department of Transportation, whoever, they put it on a train, shipped us down there. I think during World War II, the Treasury Department was in charge of the Internal Revenue Service, and they were in charge of the Customs House. So I guess that's where we went to get my passport ID. The Treasury Department must have done that. And then the United States Navy War Department, they were over the Coast Guard and the Merchant Marines, so they had to have something to do with it. So we went to Baltimore. They took us to a place called Hawkins Point. So I got out there, there was nothing. No houses, no nothing. It was like a desert. Big high fence around the place, 10, 12 feet high. Guard gate with a couple of guards in it. The ship was anchored in this inland lake or harbor. They had railroad tracks built right out into the harbor. What the hell do I know? I'm a farm kid. What the hell's that? They were sending these goddamn carloads of munitions down. And they put canvas over so there wouldn't be any lights or anything at night. They were loading this ship, well, it's in there, 24 hours a day. Well, we load them for 5 days, and it said it'd take 5 more days to finish it up. That's all there. So, I don't know where my 3 weeks of shipboard training came in, but it took 74 days to go over in England and back.
Now, this was a munition ship?
Munition ship.
What were your duties while you were on the ship?
Me, they called us Messman, but I was a mess boy, I guess. But anyway, I served all the officers. So, the skipper on the ship, if I remember, he had to be in his 70s. He was an old-timer. I didn't know any better. I used to serve him. At nighttime, I'd sit right there at one of the tables with the third engineer, because he came from Stone Ridge, where my brother lives today, not too far from where we're at. His mother and father ran a garage there or something on the corner. So I used to play checkers or pinochle with him. Then I'd be playing with the other officers. Yeah, I guess they liked me or whatever. Then this one guy would say, "Hey, time for a little refreshment." And so the skipper would look at me. He'd give me his keys. Outside his forecastle up above the deck, he had a cabinet filled with liquor, 5, 6 cases of liquor. So I'd bring a couple bottles of liquor down, 16 years old, pour out a couple shots to everybody in the place. There was about, oh Christ, must have been 20 officers, I imagine. And we'd all have a good little drink and talk about the old days and bullshit about this and that. Now the damn skipper, he used to come to my forecastle. I was supposed to get up, I think, 6:30 in the morning. He used to come at 6 o'clock in the morning, wake me up, because he wanted his goddamn coffee before the rest of them. So I was working a half an hour there without being paid, I guess. But anyway, he used to take me up on the poop deck, And I used to throw tin cans in the water. He used to shoot at them with a 45. So one day he gave me an old 45 from World War I that he had. Showed me how to load it and cock it and all this bullshit. So he says, I'm going to throw a can in the water. I want to see how good you are. So when he threw the can in the air, I blew the gun. Boom! I blew the can apart right in midair. He looked at that. He said, holy Christ, how the hell did you do that? I said, easy. He said, what do you mean easy? I said, well, the farm where I live, there's 4 hickory trees down back. I said, they're separated maybe by 8-10 feet. The squirrels used to jump from one branch to another tree. I used to lay on my back with a .22 rifle, and I used to shoot them out of the air. So, I mean, shooting a tin can is no different than shooting a squirrel. So he got a big kick out of that. He says, holy Jesus. So, I mean, I can tell you 100 stories like that.
Now, did you have any problems going across?
Yeah, 74 days over and back we had problems.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the ships only carried a 30-day food supply. The one boiler blew. We went something like, I don't know, 20 miles in 2 weeks or some idiot thing. I didn't see any armed guard ships around us. Well, I know that they left us. We were alone. That's why we went into Oran, North Africa, to take on food supplies. That's the first time I ever saw oranges like that. They were the size of a pumpkin. The slices were like a banana. That's how big they were. And they were tasty and juicy.
Now, did your ship ever have any weapons on it?
Sure, 3-inch guns, 5-inch guns. I got my training book inside there. Remind me to show that to you. That's how I trained myself. I sat in the goddamn forecastle at night reading the books and all this and that. Then the Navy Armed Guard, they put me in one of the guns there, 20mm guns, and showed me how to fire it. I'm dragging ammunition, 3-inch, 5-inch, oh Jesus. And then, the second ship where my buddies got killed.
Oh, what ship was Frank Park your first ship?
Frank Park was my first ship.
Okay.
So when I got into this tanker, we had like 6 million gallons of high-octane gas for the, I guess it was going to the 8th Air Force. There was rumors it was going to Italy, and there was rumors it was going to Murmansk. But anyway, the 3 of us, the 16-year-olds, we were playing knock rummy one night in the mess hall. They had to go on watch at 4 o'clock in the morning. I was utility man on that ship. I didn't have to do anything to 6. Well, they were on the starboard side of the ship, and I was on the port side. So I said, stay up. I was going on deck and get some fresh air for 15 minutes. You'll feel better. Laying down for half an hour isn't going to help you. So they decided they wanted to lay down a half an hour. So I went to sleep. I wasn't there long. Something hit. I mean, I heard the noise. I went flying. Everything was steel. The bulkheads, the deck, and this and that. I don't know if I was knocked out for 2 minutes or 20 minutes. But I heard the goddamn general alarm ringing. And there was only one other guy in the forecastle with me. He was gone, but he came back. Forgot his wallet and some other stuff. So he helped me get my pants on. He says, hurry up, we got to abandon the ship. So I went up on deck. I'm lowering a lifeboat away, getting ready to. One of the mates came along. He says, hey, we got 8-10 guys missing. So the skipper said, all right, no abandoning ships. We don't leave nobody. That's when we started looking. We went down this forecastle where 8-10 guys slept. Now, there's one guy, he had a rope around him. I mean, you could walk right out in the ocean. The water was rough. He slipped. He grabbed hold of a locker. And the locker busted loose. The locker went overboard. The guy's life savings, everything was in there. That was gone. I didn't have any rope around me. I'm climbing out on the goddamn twisted steel and shit. So I'm rubbing through the wreckage. This one kid's head fell right into my hands. A goddamn 16-year-old, and I still dream about it. And the other kid, they were mangled, mutilated, whatever you want to call it. From that day on, I never liked Roosevelt or anything to have to done with government.
Were you hit by a torpedo?
hit by another ship broadside.
Oh, okay.
Now my cousin, or my brother, wait a minute, let me look. My brother just mailed this to me 2 weeks ago. Well, you saw about the 16-year-old stuff. Now, he mails me this here. Well, I got all 44. I go down the line, I get to right here. I said, Jesus Christ, that's the goddamn ship that hit us. As soon as I saw it. I looked down and I said, there's my ship, the Crow Wing. All they say is 2 killed. They don't say 16-year-olds or nothing. They've never said 16-year-olds. Like I say, any goddamn thing I say, I'll back up. Now, they had 1,000 ships they could have put us on. They could have put us on ships running up and down the Mississippi to the inland lakes. They could have put us ships on coastwise, up and down from Maine to Texas, taking all this stuff to different ports to load up these ships. And if they didn't want to do that, they could have had the decency to put us on some kind of non-explosive ships like that troop ship or something where you got a chance of surviving. And a goddamn munition ship or a tanker, you got no chance. So that's what the government thought of us. Roosevelt sold our goddamn bodies and lives for money. The IRS tax that paid his wages. Not one mention of us for all these years.
Were you able to get underway on your own, or did you have to be towed, or?
Well, a lot of guys were hurt, so Navy DE came up alongside of us. We didn't have doctors on the ships. We had a person that did Band-Aid stuff. This doctor came over from that ship to our ship on a Breeches Buoy. And every time I think of that, it amazes me because, like I said, the water, there was swell 6-8 feet high. He got to our ship. No operating room or anything, so we threw him on the mess hall table, operated. I had to cut my leg here. Put sulfur powder on and bandage, told me to wash it and clean it once a week and rebandage it. That was my stuff. But he said 2-3 guys would probably die. If they didn't die, they'd be cripples all their lives. So anyway, he went back to his ship. And the goddamn German sub picked us up. So the DEs would go chase them. You could just barely see their smoke coming out of their sacks and hear their whistles. Another goddamn U-boat would sneak around behind us. So the skipper said we can't fire the 3-inch or 5-inch guns. The concussion will probably blow the gas up and, we're all dead one way or the other. So he says, we got to do something. So he says, we got to take a chance, we'll drop the goddamn depth charges. So the depth charges on the fantail wouldn't fire. Well, here's a seaman's omen. When we were coming out of New Jersey, out of Bayonne to the harbor there, Lower Harbor in New York, another ship hit us right in the fantail, turned us around. A couple old-time seamen who were over on the other side of the ship, they came over to us kids. They said, get off that ship, get off this ship. That's one of the worst omens that can happen. Get in the pilot boat and go ashore with them. Get away from it. So we didn't know what the hell he was talking about. We more or less laughed at him. Well, you see what happened. So I thought about that ship colliding with us in the harbor in New York. So I took a lifeboat oar and I'm pressing on the depth charge. The damn thing went up and fired. Now whether it hit a sub or didn't hit or what. But anyway, we kept going. We couldn't go into Ireland because we had a gun on the bow. So we went to Swansea, Wales. Now, we slept in that goddamn smell of that gas. It took 3 days to unload it. The stink and fumes. Now, that's part of the problem here, probably. I never thought about that. We slept in that stink and everything else, and when they got done with unloading it, we went up 7-8 miles to Avonmouth. That's where there was a dry dock. Had a goddamn rope ladder we had to climb up and down to get off and on the ship. Slept in the stink there for a while, and then we went to a seaman's club I think it was in Bristol, not too far, 7, 8 miles away. We stayed there for a month or two. They patched the ship up with timber and tar instead of steel. So many things. So many things.
How many trips did you make across the Atlantic?
7. That's on that slip somewhere there, one of them.
Any other incidents on your trip?
Every trip there's an incident. These guys, custom guys, they would come on the ship. So this one ship, there was 3 of us in a forecastle. So one locker was locked. So the custom guys checked our 3 lockers, the 3 guys there. They said, "Who owns that locker?" We said, "Well, he's ashore now, he'll be back later." So they said, "Well, we'll be back later." Well, that was my locker, which I had locked up. Had part of a 50 caliber machine gun in it. You'll see the stuff there about the guns. So as soon as he left, I was going to pull the goddamn stuff out and hide it under a mattress or something. He walks right back in, he catches me with the stuff. So he said, "Hey," he said, "I thought the guy was ashore that had this locker. How'd you open it up?" I said, "Well," I said, "it's my locker." So he says, "You got any ammunition for this stuff?" I said, "Nah, it's all junk stuff." He says, "All right, put your hat and coat on. We're going down to the customs house." I pulled my pants on. About 40, 50 shells fell over the floor. So they gave me the permit for the gun. It was made for the Polish officers, a German patent, I think it was. Well, I don't even know that much about it even. So anyway, then another time, this other guy, he was a Spanish guy, I never forget him. We picked up a couple of French prostitutes. So we went to this hotel. This one girl and I was on this floor. This Spanish guy and this other girl was right above us. So, you know, we wanted to know where each other was. All of a sudden, this girl and I hear a noise coming from that room up there. So we go up, bust in the room. There this guy is, Spanish guy. He's got the girl by the wrist. He's swinging her back and forth. And he's got a switchblade knife in his hand. Going to cut her finger off to get her ring off. He couldn't get it off. So I grabbed his arm and the knife. And I said, "Jesus, God almighty." And there's a lot more I'm not going to talk about because of this. But anyway, we get out in the street and the French cops are there and this and that. We talked our way out of it. We were ready to go. A couple goddamn MPs come up. "What the hell is going on here?" Well, they took us down to this goddamn dungeon. Threw us in it, the 2 of us. So the skipper from the ship came up and he got me up, but the other guy, he couldn't get out right away. In fact, I think, I know he did. He stayed over there and he came back on another ship later. So I guess that was a little exciting. So they were going to hold my payroll up. Well, there was another guy on the ship named Green, a colored guy. We had colored guys. We didn't discriminate. We had black guys, red guys, yellow. We had Chinese cooks, everything. So anyway, they called my name to get paid. So I grabbed this colored guy's arm. I said, "Hey, keep your mouth shut for 15 minutes. Let me get my money and get the hell out of here." So I grabbed my money and took a train over to Albany, the old cattle train or whatever they called it. Slept upstairs over the train station where the girls were. Woke up the next morning, all these girls sitting around us typing. We didn't know where our clothes was or anything else. They took a bus down to Kingston home. Something happened every trip. Another trip, I sneaked a girl on a ship. I shouldn't even talk about this stuff. So, we're in the bunk there. Another colored guy, he slept above me. There's only 2 of us in that room. He turns, he puts his head down over the bunk. He looks at me. He says, "Hey, Green, I smell pussy. What's going on here?" So I said, "Jesus Christ." So I got the girl, I said, "Come on, we got to get out of here." So I'm going ashore with her, and there's this guy from Argentina. He had a ring in his nose then. I mean, this guy is really an animal. Well, he saw her. He said, I'll take her ashore and this and that, and he's hugging me and patting me. He took her ashore and he got caught with her. I think they fined her something like 17 pounds, which was a lot of money then. It was like $4 a pound almost. He got himself in trouble. I can tell you stories all day long like this.
Now, how much did you get paid? You were paid per hour while you were on the ship?
Well, I got $87.50 a month for my payroll slips there. So if I worked 60 hours at 37.5 cents an hour, that would be $87.50.
Mm-hmm.
Then I paid room and board, and I paid income tax.
Now, you have a lot of letters here. How often did you write home?
Well, every other day probably.
Mm-hmm. And your mother kept all your letters. Now, I noticed they're not crossed out. There were no censorship on your letters?
There's one censored.
Is there one? Okay. I didn't notice.
That was over in England when I think the ship was in dry dock, and I said we were at the seaman's house staying there instead of on the ship. I see that was scratched.
Now, you had quite a mixed crew then, an international crew and a racial mixed.
Yep, young and
What
old.
were things like on ships? Were there ever any problems?
Never saw an argument fight. We had guys with 1, 2, 3 fingers missing. We had guys that wore the old black pouch. Their whole eye was gone, socket and all. We had guys.
I'll stop this for a second.
Now, there's one ship I sailed there, the SS Crowwing. Well, that's another thing I never knew. All the tankers were named after Native Americans. That's in this stuff here. Came back the other day. But this ship made 250 ocean voyages. It was a World War I coal passer, an old Hog Islander, and they transferred it over to steam, I guess it was. So that damn ship had to be filled with asbestos and all the other coal dust or whatever. So between the high-octane gas, that ship and the other ship, our health wasn't too good, I guess.
Now, you were in the Crow Wing and the Swift Arrow. Both of those were tankers?
Yep.
What were the other ships? The Frank Park was a munition ship.
Munition ship.
How about the Sedalia Victory?
That was a troop ship. See, that's why I should have been out of the troop ship and the other 16-year-old kid.
How about the Westerly Victory?
That was a troop ship.
Okay, and the last one you were on was the
Marcus Tracy.
Tracy, yes. What was
That
that?
was a freight ship. We went from, I don't know, Portland, Albany, and London. Docked outside of London. I forget what the hell cargo was on that ship.
Now, when you went from ship to ship, did any of the other crew members go with you, or were you always...
Well, sometimes I did and sometimes I didn't.
Okay.
We had a guy that called the Unsinkable Greek. I think he had 5 or 6 ships that went under him. And be in the Union Hall, and the guys that see him, they were afraid to sign on the ships with him.
Now, you told us a story prior to the interview about Lucky Luciano.
Yeah.
Could you tell us that story while it's on tape?
Oh, all right, yeah, well, when the war was going to break out, evidently Roosevelt didn't have enough confidence in the government to keep the docks free of sabotage. And I had a couple brother-in-laws, prison guards up there at Clinton, Denimore, where Luciano was. So Roosevelt sent the Navy War Department up there, brought him down, put him in Sing Sing, so the War Department could keep in touch with him every day. And Luciano could keep in touch with the dock workers. That's how they kept the docks free of sabotage. Now, I guess if Luciano wanted to blow up New York, then he probably could have. It doesn't show me much smarts about government. Now, just like after the war, there was a story about counterfeit money showing up in Europe. Now, there was a number. I don't know where the FBI number was, but anyway, I told the guy, I said, I know quite a lot about counterfeit money and how it's getting over in Europe. This jerk says to me, well, he says, it's only less than 1%. We can't mess around looking at stuff like that. What was it, 10, 15 years ago? Now it's millions and billions of American counterfeit money over there. I wonder why. They nipped it in the bud in the beginning. They would have put a stop to it, my way of thinking. The government knows everything. I mean, there's nobody that knows anything but them.
Now, how long were you on merchant marine ships?
Oh, 19, 20 months, but a little less than 2 years.
Why did you leave the merchant marines?
Well, I went home one night, and the bus only went as far as Ellenville, about 7 miles from the farm.
Okay,
Okay.
And so I stopped in this bar years ago through Rocky Graziano and Jake LaMotta and those guys trained in that town. So I guess I had too much to drink. Guy wakes me up the next day in the hotel room. Rendezvous is the name of the place. 2 brothers, George and Fred Edelman, that ran it. So they said they hired me the night before as a bartender. So I said, you did what? They said, we hired you as a bartender. So they took me down to the bar. They showed me the whiskey, the cash register, the money, all this junk. He says, Fred or I'll be back later and show you the rest of the ropes. He showed me how to draw a beer and wear the whiskey. 3 days and 3 nights I never saw anybody. I'm in the joint 24 hours a day, serving whiskey and beer. So one of them came in, doing a hell of a job. We heard all about you, this garbage, that. You got to stay with us. Well, so I stayed for a while. And I think I was 17 years old then. Jesus. When I'm 17 years old, I get a letter from I don't know who it was, it had to be the government, telling me to sign up for the selective service. I mean, how the hell, you couldn't sign up until you were 18. So why the hell would they send me a letter like that? I mean, what'd they do, send everybody 60, 70 years old, 17, 16-year-olds? I'd like to know that stuff, really. And paper was scarce during the war. You talk about waste and all this other garbage.
now when you were working as a bartender, this was after the war ended?
Yeah.
Okay, whereabouts were you when you heard that the war ended?
We were in the North Atlantic coming back from the dry dock when the ship got hit. A couple German submarines came up and surrendered to us. They knew about before we did. They went into New York and New Jersey and surrendered before we got back.
Hey, now, after you left the service, did you ever stay in contact with anyone that was in with you, or at all?
Well, my cousin, we best of friends. I only had maybe a half a dozen friends in my life. I was always a loner. Donnie Lawrence, talk about the goddamn fate. He went to work for the Land Bureau or whatever, down there in Mexico on the border. This is 1946. He lasted there about 2-3 months. He came back. He said, what a joke. He says, you grab one guy and 10,000 guys run past you. So he told him to go to hell. He said, Jesus Christ. He couldn't put up with that kind of work. So he went to work for the Corrections Department in Sullivan County. Now the other guy, Earl Gray, he had a plumbing business. Took over from his father. I used to bump into him every so often. Now this guy, the guy that has pictures in there, that Christensen, I spent a couple hours with him and his family 2 years ago. Half a dozen of them have died. Like I said, I probably only had 3-4 friends.
Were you ever able to join any veterans organizations?
I didn't want any part of them. We weren't good enough then, and I wouldn't join today. After what they did and never recognized the kids. I think that is one crying shame.
How do you think your time in the Merchant Marine had an effect on your life?
No, didn't make my life any happy. I'll tell you, or happier. I'll tell you that. I wish I'd stayed on the farm, graduated from school. Now, you want to hear one more thing?
Sure.
Well, the girls mix up the meals for the church down here. They come every Tuesday and Thursday. She called me up a week ago, or 2 weeks ago, I think it was, and she says, George, she says, come on down to church. We're going to have somebody there from the Attorney General's office. I think that might be it right there.
Mm-hmm.
So, my wife used to go down. My wife had 3 open heart surgeries. She had a dozen other things. She used to go down there and socialize with him, eat and play bocce ball and all this garbage. My first wife died from Hodgkin's disease in '52. I haven't been to church since. That's another thing. But that was the government experiments with their goddamn mustard gas treatments. So anyway, I told her, I said, look, I said, I know more about goddamn scams than the Attorney General. I said, I know about thievery, tax evasion, kickbacks. I said, I got it all in booklets. Oh, there's 3 of them over there. She says, bring them down. We'd like to see them. I said, you sure? So I went down. So anyway, this girl, well, there's stuff right there. I don't know whether she was so mad at me she left it or whether she left it spread all over the tables. I picked it up because I called her a scumbag. I meant to call her a douchebag. I figured she'd be up here raising hell. But anyway, when I went down to the table when they got done with their meeting, and she was talking about these scams, there was one guy there at the table talking to her. Now, she pulled her wallet out. I saw she had a gold badge there, so I don't know if she's a big shot or everybody that works for the government has a gold badge. So anyway, when he got done lit, I says, now, you talked about scams. I'm talking about pilfery, thievery. So I brought the book out and I showed her. I said, that's against the law. I showed her page after page. I said, they stole from the railroad. The more they stole, the more they collected. I said, they stole the whiskey. They got paid for it. The railroad paid for it. Then they turned around. The shipping company paid for it. I guess too, some of it. Then the distillery, most of it was Scotch. They paid for it. Then they made the salesman pay half for the broken necks that they picked up at the bars and liquor stores. I said, these guys were outright thieves. I said, one day, this Indian came to me. 2 Jewish guys and an Irishman ran the place. None of them liked each other. So anyway, this Indian says to me, George, he says, does your pay slip look right? The W-2 forms. I said, why? He says, well, I should have made about $8,000. I mean, June's got me down for $11,000. I couldn't have made that kind of money. We were working maybe $6 an hour then or whatever. So I said, geez, I'm working in the warehouse. I only get overtime the first part of the month. I don't know. I'd only been there a couple of years. So anyway, we all go up to the Arrow Grill in Franklin Avenue. We got together, started talking about things. The Indian got his old adding machine out and added it up. This goddamn broad was going to the office manager, Krause. She'd say, Krause, I need $300,000 for the payroll. He'd go around the bank on Girling Street, come back, give her the $300,000. Now, if you made $200 a week, she put you down for $300, put the $100 in her pocket, she paid you the $200 that you had coming, but you were paying taxes on $300. So we called her up to the grill and we said, well, give us a few $100 for the tax money we've had to spend and forget about it. She says, go to hell. So then, these state and federal workers, I mean, I don't know who the hell they were, but they were in there for at least a month, 24 hours a day. And if they were that goddamn stupid, they couldn't see what was going on. There's something wrong there, too. So the one Jewish guy says to her, you know, we can forget about this stuff. We can go to bed and it'll all be forgotten. She says, go to hell, you scumbag or something. So she quit and they gave her a hell of a recommendation for a bank. So I'm saying to myself, boy, oh boy. Well, I watched all these things. That's why I kept track of them. I went to union meetings every Wednesday night for 2 years. Every time I'd get up and say something, I was out of order, mind my own business, shut up and sit down. One night we were ready to swing some chairs at each other. 2, 3 guys grabbed me. They dragged me across the union hall floor and threw me out the back door. So I went to work the next day, Thursday. Within 15 minutes, called one of my fellow co-workers a scumbag. And I said myself included. And I became one of the best at it. So here's another thing I can prove. So anyway, I'm showing this broad all this stuff and telling her. She's looking at me with a dumb look on her face. I said, here's 30,000 crimes over 30 years. I said, there's more than 30,000. So I don't get any response from her. So I said, you scumbag, get the hell out of here. You're not worth the shit and time talking to you.
Okay.
So she left. So this girl mentioned something about Eisenhower and his love life there when he was a general. Pat there, or Somerville, or whatever her name was, the chauffeur. Well, everybody knew what was going on. He probably made out with her in the car and hotels and this and that. So this other girl that was there for the age or whatever, she was from another department. She mentioned something about Eisenhower. So I got up and I gave it to him good. I said, now we're going to talk about scumbags, some other things. I said, now Bill Clinton, by his own self-acknowledgement, is a cheating liar, right? I said, then he said he smoked wacky tobacco, but he didn't inhale, right? And he's known to have taken a...
Thank you.
Well, why don't we get a close-up of that picture of him?
Yes.
It's only the beginning of the story, believe me.
Now, when and where was this photograph taken?
Well,
Remember?
had to be taken in Kingston or Ellenville.
It's probably when you went home. You have medals, so
Yeah, probably...
Okay.
I got those. Some guy on a ship, I think he was 17. We came back. He went right to Washington, D.C. I think his father was a big shot in government or something. He went right there and, what the hell was it? Washington Avenue or Constitution Avenue or somewhere. Walked right into the office with the papers and they gave us the medals. That amazed me too. How the hell did he know where to go? And what
now these are some copies of your letters that you wrote to your mother and father?
Yeah, I've made copies.
Mm-hmm.
Or my brother made copies. Now, I'll tell you, I've sent these to relatives and friends in 4 different states. I've sent copies of this stuff over to 2 different countries in Europe. And if I don't hear some answers within a week, I'm going to give all that stuff to Amnesty International, the Civil Liberties Union, every goddamn one else. And I think they'll get answers. And
Okay.
I'm sure a lot of people aren't going to like what they have to say.
Okay.
All right, well, thank you. Is there any way that we could get copies of all these, or make copies of these for our collection at the museum?
Well, my daughter's going to print up copies, more copies, so